I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Our focus this week is a local organization that more than 30 years has been helping people in our community, Souls Harbor. Joining me is Georgia Jones, one of the founders. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Judy. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you're talking more than 30 years of being a part of Joplin.
Yes, in fact, February 28th will be our 33rd anniversary.
And you were there at the beginning.
I am the last remaining original incorporator.
Let's talk a little bit about those early days and how Souls Harbor came to Joplin.
Well, it was kind of an interesting event in that my daughter and I had actually been doing missions work on the Native American reservations for a period of time. We came back through and we stopped in my hometown, Coffeyville, Kansas. Now, our family had been living in Knoxville, Tennessee, and my husband decided to come down and join us for a while in the area. He had a pastor friend who had been moved to Joplin and was pastoring in Joplin, so he decided he wanted to come and see Dr. Frank Clifton.
Let's go visit, yeah.
Yeah, and so we got in the car and we came to Joplin. It was November 13th. It was cold. It was sloppy. It was a typical nasty November day. And so we're driving up and down the streets. We didn't have any idea where we were. In fact, we called Dr. Clifton and said, where do we find the motels? He said, we go over there on Rangeline Road. And we said, where's Rangeline Road?
You didn't have a map or anything.
But we were on Main Street. And while we were on Main Street, there was a young man who was at the doors of a church in Joplin. He didn't have any shoes on his feet. And he was rattling the doors and he couldn't get in. And the young man, just kind of in exasperation and despair, turned his back against the wall and slid down the wall and just sat there with his face cradled in his hands. And I said to myself, I hope my husband did not see that. He saw it. And so I could see the wheels rolling in Art's eyes then. He had done his thesis in seminary on taking care of the homeless and patterned after the Pacific Garden Mission model. So we're driving around Joplin still yet, and we're on 7th Street, close to the area where Acamaro is now. And there's this little old man, scrawny, bald-headed, bowed over, strutting on a cane, wearing an World War II Army dress coat with huge holes in it. And again I said, God, don't let Art see that man. But Art saw him. And immediately Art's heart was attached. So the next thing I heard was the question, I wonder if there's not a place here in Joplin to take care of these people.
So we saw a need.
So the next thing I knew, every bit of our money went together to establish us in the city of Joplin and to open the doors of Souls Harbor. So between November 13th, 1981 and February 28th, 1982, everything was in full swing toward incorporating and preparing for the work of Souls Harbor.
Great. And your mission at the beginning continues to be your mission today?
It does. It's broadened. It's increased. It has touched many people. And there was a period of time when Art was alive that we also had other Souls Harbors in the area. In fact, at one time we had 9 separate missions.
In surrounding communities.
In surrounding communities. And we were in board of directors meetings every night of the week.
It took a lot to operate those facilities.
It did. It did indeed. But when he died, if you take in the meal count of all 9 of the facilities together, serving meals 3 times a day, by the time that Art passed on to glory, we had served 3 million hot meals.
So you reached a lot of lives
We
within
did.
those communities. And you saw a lot of growth over those years. I mean, you started off small, I'm sure, as a small
Yes.
facility.
Our first night we had 3 beds. And we served spaghetti to 35 people that first night. We had 3 men stay that night. And it was kind of interesting. Our daughter has always been tender-hearted. And so Art said out loud, he was just musing, and he said out loud, if we have one more man tomorrow night, I don't know what we're going to do. And my daughter said, Daddy, I'll let him have my bed. And so the second night, we had 4 beds. One was a white frame bed with pink roses stenciled on it.
Her bed became
And we had 4 men that night. And so since Art stayed up most of the night in those first days watching the places, you know, Shauna got to snuggle up with Mommy that night.
So a real family activity. Your family
Yes.
was committed to this
Yes.
program and working together. And we hear the term emergency shelter a lot. Was that a good definition for the services you provided?
We are a temporary emergency shelter, yes. When somebody has no place to go, that's pretty much an emergency. I had a pastor come in today talking to me about a woman who has been living in her car for 2 months. And I said, send her in here. She has an emergency. We have a space open for her. It is a temporary shelter. It's not a permanent residence.
For people who really need that immediate help and
Yes.
tying them together. And we hear the term homeless a lot of times, and that can take on a lot of definitions. For
Oh,
people.
that's a very broad range. It has a broad spectrum of definition. That can go anywhere from the person who is sleeping behind a tombstone in the cemetery or under the viaduct to the hidden homeless person who is the person who is couch surfing in other people's places.
They don't have a place of their own.
Right. They're just going, they stay here till they get thrown out, then they find another buddy and they go there till they get tossed out.
So you initially started off serving men in the community.
Yes.
Then families became involved.
Yes, that was, it wasn't very long. It was within the first 2 weeks. The first families we took into our own personal home. That was a rough way to go, but it got the family unit started. Then we began to, we gained another piece of property and put the families in there until we built the family shelter downtown. And then we started taking women. So we are the only agency in town that takes men, women, and children.
So in many cases, homelessness affects the whole family. Then.
It does. Oh, the children that are victims of homeless are a very sad situation. That what they go through is just phenomenal. The shame, the stigma, the not having an anchor, not having a solid situation, having to come into a place where they have to share everything with 49 other people.
It's a real challenge.
It is. It's my heart bleeds for those.
So you provide them a warm place to stay, food, but you also provide other services. There's counseling type of services.
Well,
available.
we do some counseling. Yes. In fact, I was 20 years certified as an addictions counselor. So, but the counseling that we do is like emergency counseling until they can refer them to another source.
So you have other agencies you would work
We
with?
We do. In fact, we connect with a number of agencies over town. We connect with Economic Security and Joplin Housing Authority to get housing placement for the clients. And so we do interact with a variety of agencies in the area.
So when you're dealing with people in emergency situations, it's not one agency, one person can deal with it. You have to have that networking of other people.
We cannot survive without being linked together with all the others. And the work cannot be done. It takes every single agency in this town to accomplish the goal of meeting the needs of the people.
Well, we have some pictures that you've provided, and I know our crew in the back can help start showing some of these pictures. And as we're seeing them, we'll see them for the audience. Explain a little bit about the facility, what we have here in Joplin, and we'll go through the screen and talk about, of course, your facility's on Main Street. Some
Yes.
people are familiar with Main Street.
It's in two places on Main Street. This is a picture of our mission statement. We have it proudly posted in our administrative building. This is Jan and Cassie, and they're working in the newly refurbished kitchen and dining room area. We got that finished this year, and it's been a tremendous blessing to have it updated. This is one of the family rooms. This is typical of one of our family rooms. This is the men's dormitory area. There are 30 beds in there and 3 showers. This is the front of our chapel, and chapel attendance is required by residents staying at the harbor.
And how often is the chapel service?
Nightly.
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 Okay.
6:30 nightly.
And this shows you the size of that room. It's a good size room.
It's a good size room. This is the back of the chapel.
And we also have people in the chapel.
Yes, this is, in fact, this is a friend of mine who lives in Wales, and her name is Georgia Jones.
Oh, okay. So.
We're Facebook friends. That causes confusion. Okay, and this is our secretary, whose office faces mine. This is the front of our residence building.
So we recognize that, and we know where we're at in the community. Well, let's talk about some of those pictures of things that we saw, starting with the housing. You have the housing in the men's dormitory, for instance. You had the bunk bed type of setup.
Yes,
And
there are 30 of those available. The men can bring in with them enough stuff to stash underneath one half of a bunk bed. They can't bring much in with them. It's pretty simple barrack style.
And in the family room, you actually have room for mom, dad, and the kids to be together in that.
Well, no, we separate the men from the women for the safety of the men.
Okay.
Because when you start mixing genders, you have mixed gender problems. So we separate the men from the women, and it's not the best solution, but it's the best solution we have for there at this time.
Right, when they're in a temporary need of a situation,
Yes.
it gives them a place to stay. Now, as we're recording this program, it's winter, it's cold. People probably ask, do you see that what we would expect increase of people coming to you
Yes,
for
we do.
services?
In fact, it's kind of ironic that I don't care what the weather season is and the weather changes, there's an influx or an outflow with every seasonal change. If one day in the summertime we all of a sudden have a spring day, everybody exits.
It's nice, let's go.
And then it gets to be 100 degrees and they come back in. And it's the same way in the wintertime. We have more influx in the wintertime because of the more severe conditions. You can find some place to survive in the summer easier than you can the winter.
You can find a shady place to
Yes.
somewhat cool, but in the winter that cold is definitely something that people would come inside for services. Now, how do people find out about your services?
Well,
what do they tell you when they walk in the door? Someone told me about you, or
sometimes, or a pastor sent me, or we were just wondering if. The mentality in the United States has gotten to where receiving has become a large part of living. The welfare system and things like this. And so people begin to expect. So they go other places and they see this facility did this and this and this. Do you do the same thing? And then we have agency referrals, and we have church referrals, and we have people who just see somebody wandering on the street and they put them in their car and say, come, let me take you someplace where you can get some help, and they bring them to us.
So citizens reaching out and helping people. Now, we saw the kitchen. You serve a lot of meals. You continue to do that.
We do. We have beds for 50 people. So we have breakfast and supper, both. We prepare for at least 50. And we've restarted a feeding program at lunchtime from 11 to 12. It's a light lunch, soup and sandwich right now. And it's for anybody in the community who's hungry. And persons, you don't have to be a resident to come in and eat at a mealtime there either.
Okay.
If you're hungry, you come in and you can eat. Now, this has changed recently because between the time that I left previously after my husband's death and the time that I have come back, they quit doing the noon meal. And they also quit permitting people from the outside to come in, but that's open again.
Is that due to having more food available or helping?
No, it's just due to reorganization.
New structure and operations and so forth. Well, a question people also might have is, who serves the food? How do you staff a facility like that to have a consistency in meals?
Staffing is interesting. We have, my house manager, Jan Burris, has been there for 17 years. She literally undertakes the huge responsibility of running the residential program. We have a total staff of 10 persons besides myself, who are there all the time, and we have persons who are assigned to the kitchen and dining room.
So 24/7, there's someone in the facility to operate it.
24/7, but you might have to ring a doorbell or make a phone call to get it, because part of the time the door's locked.
So the food service, do you have volunteers who come out and serve the meals?
We certainly do. We have a lot of churches. There are some churches who come just to serve the meal, and there are other churches who bring the meal and serve it. Churches, clubs, organizations. We have one family who is diligent about coming to serve every Monday night. And they do not miss a Monday night. They will be there on Monday night to dish up and serve.
So they've been doing that for quite a while.
Just this Saturday, we had a group of young people from one of the local churches, and those kids just had a blast. They got the people got to sit down, and the kids carried the plates to them, which was kind of nice. You know, that's a treat that you don't get very often, when you get served instead of have to stand in a chow line
and go through the cafeteria style.
And so that's a big event. And the youth group had a really great time. They were just bubbling all over the place.
Now, the food that's being served, is that donated to you as well? Does churches have food? Do they
Churches
have food
donate. Yes, we have a lot of it that's donated, and then we have to purchase some also. You know, it would be nice if we could just walk to the freezer and get something because somebody has just donated it, but that doesn't always happen.
You have to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
And so forth. So the support for the facility financially, does that come from churches, individuals, companies?
Yes.
All of the above.
All of the above. Yes. Primarily churches and private individuals. There are some businesses and clubs and other organizations who have given to us. We have some persons who have set up a few donations come from trust systems. The people have set up a trust for the continuance of the work of Souls Harbor.
Now, early in the pictures when we were looking, you mentioned about the remodeling of the kitchen and the dining room. That obviously would be a major project.
Oh, in a building that's 105 years old, that was a major renovation. And it started out with a price tag of $35,000. And the farther we went, the higher the price tag got. But it is paid for. It is doing well right now. The final price tag was $75,000.
But when you look at, I mean, you're dealing with almost commercial grade service.
Commercial grades, yes. A very excellent kitchen, refreshed walls, new heating and air conditioning system, much more energy and efficient. We had to revamp a lot of the plumbing and things like that.
So then the building itself, as you said, over 100 years old for the building that you were in.
Yes. I believe that building opened in 1904.
But that location has been a location in Joplin for most of the time that you've been here.
Yes.
And so people are familiar with that location.
Yes.
So tying that together. You also have other opportunities for people. I was reading your information that you have a day, we call it Wednesday, a free store.
A free store. It's open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Wednesdays. It's an area that in the front of our warehouse that we have partitioned off, and people can come in. They're limited to a 13-gallon bag per family, and they can come in, and if they can put it in that bag, they can take it away with them. In the free store also, we have some larger items occasionally, a desk, a chair, a piece of furniture, or something like that. A lot of televisions. We're getting a lot of televisions. And so they just fill out some paperwork for the larger items. And those results are entered into our computer.
Now, is that something, do you have to be a resident to be able to get those things? Or
Oh, no.
anybody can come in off the street and help out?
In fact, we have people standing in the doorway at 8 o'clock and
waiting for the store to open.
I have literally had to go ask them not to block the sidewalk, that the store opens faithfully at 10 o'clock and they can wait in their vehicles.
Now, are these items that are donated to you? People in the community are giving them to you?
Yes, they are. All of them are donated items. Sometimes we're blessed to have linens. We got a few bags of toilet tissue in today that will be available in the free store.
People often ask, what type of things do you need? I mean, they think about, okay, you need food and clothing, but it sounds like you need more beyond just those types of items.
To make it simple, if you can use it at home or in an office, we can use it to distribute or in the facility somewhere.
So
if it's in good condition and you can use it anywhere, then other people can use it also.
So you're able to share those with the others who are coming
Yes.
in and need those items. And you mentioned the furniture, and if somebody is in a situation where they're homeless and they're trying to resettle perhaps in a home, they probably are starting out without very much to put in that home.
Yes. And we do give that furniture when we have it. We don't always have furniture and appliances, but there have been several times that we've been blessed to be able to help a person fill their whole house. And a lot of times, by virtue of working with economic security in their housing programs, sometimes the caseworker at economic security will call us and say, do you have? And they'll come and pick the furniture up for the client.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that we really do not have a way to deliver the furniture.
Right.
The persons need to make that arrangement for themselves.
Now, you mentioned earlier children and families. Is there a need for items for children? You think of a lot of people may have
Yes.
adult clothing, but what do you do for the kids?
We do give children's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
We do have need for children's clothing, especially at the back to school time of the year when a child is needing something fresh to start a fresh year in. So